Most people spend decades planning for retirement, but completely miss the 5 years that actually matter most. Your 50s and early 60s aren't just a countdown to retirement. They're the launch pad that determines whether you'll thrive or merely survive once you stop working. I've spent the last 16 years helping people navigate this transition, and the patterns are undeniable. The decisions you make right now will echo through the next 30 years of your life. Let me start with something that hit me during a meeting last month. A 72-year-old client walked in, and we were reviewing her financial situation. Everything looked solid on paper, but then she said something that stopped me cold. I wish someone had told me that retirement isn't just about having enough money. It's about knowing what you're retiring to, not just what you're retiring from. She'd spent 2 years feeling directionless before finally figuring it out. 2 years. That's over 100 weeks of her healthy retirement gone. Here's what nobody tells you about this decade of your life. You're standing at the intersection of peak earning power and diminishing time. Think about that for a second. You've finally reached the point where money flows more easily, but the clock is ticking louder than ever. This creates a unique window of opportunity that won't exist before or after. Miss it, and you'll spend your 70s looking back with regret. The first thing you need to understand is the triangle principle. Picture 3 points: time, money, and health. In your 20s and 30s, you had time and health, but no money. Career was just starting. Family was young. Every dollar mattered. Then came your 40s and early 50s, where money started flowing but time vanished. Work consumed you. Kids needed you. Life happened at full speed. Now you're approaching stage 3, which typically hits in your 70s and 80s. You'll have time and money, but health starts changing. Energy shifts. Bodies don't cooperate like they used to. But there's a fourth triangle that most people never optimize. It's that magical zone where all 3 elements align perfectly. You've got the money, you still have your health, and if you're intentional, you can create the time. This window typically exists between 58 and 68, maybe stretching to 70 for some. It's the golden decade. The problem? People either burn themselves out working through it, or they retire without a plan and waste the first few years figuring out what retirement actually means. I watched this happen with a client who retired at 63. Sharp guy, successful career, great family. He'd fantasized about retirement for years. No more early meetings, no more stress, just freedom. 6 months in, he called me, not about money, about purpose. "Is this really it?" he asked. "I thought I'd love doing nothing, but I'm bored out of my mind." We had to reverse engineer his retirement, figure out what actually mattered to him, what gave him energy instead of draining it. That's lesson 1. Don't just run from something. Run toward something specific. Your 50s are the time to test this, not when you're already retired and realizing you hate golf. Start experimenting now. What activities make time disappear? What projects get you excited? What relationships need deepening? These aren't retirement questions. They're pre-retirement laboratories. One client in his mid-50s rediscovered rock climbing. He'd done it in his 20s. Then life got busy. Career took over. Now he's back at it, and it's become central to his identity again. Not the career part, the climbing part. He's realistic though. Rock climbing isn't a forever sport. Unlike swimming or cycling or tennis, which you can do into your 80s, climbing requires specific physical capabilities that decline. So he's maximizing it now, during that golden triangle, while he still can. This connects to something critical about time itself. We can't manufacture more of it, but we can influence how we experience it. When you were 10 years old, a single year represented 10% of your entire life. Everything felt new. Time crawled. At 55, a year is less than 2% of your existence. Add in the fact that most days blur together in routine, and suddenly decades evaporate. Your brain stops forming distinct memories when nothing novel happens. The solution? Inject newness deliberately. Not just different TV shows. Actually new experiences that engage different parts of your brain. Learn something you've never tried. Visit places you've never seen. Meet people outside your usual circles. This doesn't just make life richer, it literally slows down your perception of time. A year filled with new experiences feels longer in memory than a year of identical Tuesdays. But here's where it gets interesting. You can also buy time. You're already doing this in small ways. When you pay someone to change your oil instead of spending 3 hours doing it yourself, you're buying back 3 hours. When you hire someone to power wash your deck, you're purchasing 5 hours of your life to spend however you want. Successful people understand this instinctively. Do what you do best, pay for the rest. Your 50s are when this principle becomes most powerful because you likely have the resources to apply it broadly. There's a verse that says, redeem the time. Redeem literally means to buy back. That's what I see our role as with clients. They could spend hundreds of hours learning investment strategies, monitoring portfolios, optimizing tax situations. Or they could work with us and buy back that time to spend on things that actually matter to them. The return on investment isn't just financial, it's life itself. Speaking of health, let me show you something that changed how I think about aging. Imagine a timeline of your life. You've got a certain number of healthy, active years ahead. Then there's a period of decline before the end. Most people accept this as fixed. But what if you made different choices right now? What if you built habits around fitness, strength training, cardiovascular health? Studies consistently show this doesn't just extend your lifespan, it extends your health span. That period where you're actually vibrant and capable. You're not just adding years to your life, you're adding life to your years. A 68-year-old client proved this to me. I met with her shortly after her husband passed unexpectedly. She was lost. We discussed what needed handling legally and financially, then talked about the year ahead. She set goals around travel, health, and faith. We connected a few times by phone over the following months. Then, a year later, she came back to the office. I almost didn't recognize her. She looked completely transformed. Vibrant, renewed, 20 years younger, no cosmetic work, just intentional habits around physical and mental health, yoga, workouts, meditation, scripture. She told me she felt like she'd added 10 healthy years to her life. That's exactly what we're talking about. Extending that golden triangle. Now there's something else happening in your 50s that nobody really prepares you for. It's subtle at first. You start noticing that society values youth more than experience. Your career might still be strong, but you feel the shift. Younger colleagues getting opportunities, technology changing faster, a quiet voice asking if you're still relevant. This triggers something primal, a need to prove you've still got it, that you matter, that you've succeeded. This is where the status game creeps in. Suddenly, that luxury car seems appealing, not because you need it, but because it signals something. The expensive watch, the bigger house. Whatever the symbol is in your world. I'm not immune to this. Last year, I caught myself wanting a fancy watch. When I really examined why, it came down to validation, visible proof of success, comparison with peers, affirming my identity through objects. There's nothing wrong with buying nice things if they genuinely bring you joy, but it's worth examining the why. Are you buying the thing itself or the feeling you hope it'll create? One client bought his dream Porsche 6 months into retirement. We'd planned for it. He could easily afford it. When I asked him about it later, he smiled. Yeah, it's nice, but honestly, the excitement wore off in a couple weeks. Looking back, I probably should have just rented it for a month. That's wisdom earned through experience. Test before you commit. Rent the sports car for a month. Spend extended time in that retirement destination before buying property there. Try the hobby before investing thousands in equipment. Your 50s are for experimentation, not just accumulation. Which brings me to something that's going to sound counterintuitive, but it's absolutely critical for this stage of life. You need to start tracking your expenses now, not someday, now. I know that sounds mundane, unglamorous, maybe even a little controlling if you've never done it before. But here's what happens without it. You retire with a vague idea of what you spend, maybe $10,000 a month? Sounds reasonable. Then reality hits. Travel costs more than you estimated. Home maintenance surprises you. You're eating out more because you have time to enjoy it. Suddenly that $10,000 is 15, then 18. This happened to a couple we worked with recently. Successful careers, solid savings. They'd done the math on paper. But when we asked them to track actual spending for 3 months before retirement, they discovered patterns they'd never noticed, subscriptions they'd forgotten about, weekend spending that added up, small indulgences that compounded. They weren't overspending recklessly, they just had no data, no awareness. The beauty of tracking is it removes guesswork. Use something like Monarch Money or whatever tool works for you. Let it automatically categorize everything, then review it monthly. You'll spot patterns. Some will surprise you, others will confirm what you suspected. Either way, you'll make better decisions with real information instead of assumptions. But tracking expenses is tactical. There's something more fundamental that determines whether your retirement actually feels fulfilling. It's about connection. Not just having people around, but genuinely connecting with them. A client who retired in his 50s told me something that stuck with me. He said the first thing he did with his newfound freedom was reach out to an old friend, someone who'd been his best man at his wedding 30 years earlier. They'd lost touch. Life happened. Careers, kids, distance, all the usual reasons. But now he had time, so he sent a message. They met for coffee. And he said it was like they'd talked yesterday. No awkwardness, no catching up required, just immediate depth. That's the sign of a real friendship, when decades can pass and you pick up exactly where you left off. But here's the thing, he wished he hadn't waited. Those 30 years could have been richer if he'd maintained that connection, not constantly, but intentionally. Multiple clients in their 70s and 80s echo this same regret. They wish they'd nurtured relationships more deliberately in their 50s. Before retirement, it's easy to let work consume everything. To tell yourself you'll reconnect later. Later comes faster than you think. Make the effort now. Reach out to old friends, strengthen bonds with family, be open to meeting new people, join groups that share your interests. Remember that rock climber from earlier? He didn't just rediscover a hobby, he found an entire community. Those connections will provide support, joy, and belonging in your later years. Money can't buy that. Speaking of what money can't buy, there's another trap I see constantly. People in demanding careers who are just exhausted, burned out, counting down the days until they can stop. All they can think about is rest, leisure, freedom from stress, so they retire, and 6 months later they're bored, restless, wondering if this is really all there is. The issue isn't retirement itself, it's that they were running away from something instead of running toward something. Retirement isn't just the absence of work, it needs to be the presence of purpose. If you don't define that purpose ahead of time, you'll drift. Maybe you'll fill the time with distractions, television, errands, small tasks that expand to fill the void. But you'll feel the emptiness underneath. Start exploring now. What did you love before career took over? What did you do as a teenager or in your 20s that brought genuine joy? How could you integrate some version of that into your life today? You don't have to wait until retirement to experiment. In fact, you shouldn't. Test these things while you still have structure and income. See what sticks. See what energizes you versus what sounds good in theory but drains you in practice. Purpose doesn't have to be grand. It doesn't require changing the world. It just needs to matter to you. Maybe it's mentoring younger people in your field, volunteering for a cause you believe in, creating something with your hands, learning a language, building deeper relationships, teaching a skill. The content matters less than the engagement. You need something that makes you feel alive and connected and useful. There's a verse in Ephesians that says, redeem the time. The word redeem means to buy back, to reclaim. That's what this entire conversation is really about. You can't create more time, but you can reclaim it. You can buy it back from things that don't serve you, from obligations that drain you, from activities that numb you rather than fulfill you. Your 50s aren't a waiting room for retirement. They're the design phase for the next 3 decades of your life. The choices you make right now about purpose, health, relationships, and time will determine whether you look back with satisfaction or regret. Don't let this golden decade slip past while you're too busy to notice.